Ladies and gentlemen, we are now boarding Group A. Please have your boarding passes ready to scan. If your phone is cracked, old, or was chewed up by your Chihuahua travel companion, please refrain from holding up the line. Instead, go to Verizon and trade in any phone in any condition from one of their top brands for the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus with Galaxy AI, and a watch and tab on any plan. Only on Verizon.
With new line on my plan. Service plan required for watch and tab. Additional terms apply. See Verizon.com for details.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to fling your favorite fishing rod around. And here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance covers your boat and your belongings. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to high-five someone. But not while you're holding your fishing rod. That's a prized possession. So hold on tight with both hands and keep it covered through boat insurance. Get more with Geico.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Speedball Mike Bailey. You're listening to Keepin It Strong Style. Yosh.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll preview Fantastica Mania and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leave a rating and review. You also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chop Tea store, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style for IWGP subscribers. If you want access to the weekly live stream, ad-free audio, and bonus content, subscribe at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I thought I had the timing down right. I did not. Had to remember to take my meds. Sometimes, you know, the day just gets away from you, and like certain daily tasks that you should be doing to take care of yourself, you forget. You postpone them until you're about to go live for, you know, the live paying Patreon audience. So yeah, had to remember to get some fish oil, some pumpkin seed oil, some SSRIs, which apparently Robert F.K. Jr., Kennedy Jr. does not want us taking SSRIs anymore. He's saying that people like me who are in need of mental health, that will just be sent to the farms, apparently.
What does that mean, sent to the farms?
Bro, you haven't heard about this?
No.
Bro, like he legit, and this is not me doing a bit. I'm not sensationalizing. This is some real shit this dude said. He said that instead of people being on SSRIs and, different kinds of medications, that they need to go back to like regular healthy living, which, you know, I'm a proponent of that stuff, you know, exercise, clean eating, water. And so he wants people to go to camps on farms to get some outdoor experience. So like, I guess under their administration, what will happen is like, you don't get to take your medications that have been helping you anymore. You're going to go away on an excursion to a farm to live outdoors, to cure yourself with sunshine. I don't know, bro.
Interesting stuff.
Bro, yeah, I don't know. So let me ask you this. Can you, when you go onto our X/Twitter, do you see the stuff that I have? Do you see what I've done to the timeline?
I mean,
does it affect your views of it, or is it only like when I'm logged in? It only, you know what I mean?
I'm not sure. What are you doing to the time? Like, if you like block somebody, if I log in, then yeah, I've
radicalized it. Like, we're bleeding heart liberals now, like the left of most left that you possibly, with just a couple likes. I've radicalized. It's no longer a Puro timeline. It's all anti-MAGA, all it's pretty fucking left.
Or you just like liking a bunch of stuff?
I liked like 2 or 3 things, you know, some anti-Elon Musk, anti-Trump shit, and now we are full in Antifa. Like, we're in there, bro.
I mean,
we're fucking radicalized, bro. Like, you should look at the timeline. It's crazy.
I mean, anytime I log in, I just see like wrestling stuff that pops up on the timeline.
Try it. When's the last time you logged in?
Today.
Okay. So that's what I was wondering. Like, it might just be when I'm logged in there from my IP. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
But I was hoping that it would fuck up your timeline as well. That way, when you logged in, you're like, what the fuck is Josh?
Yeah. No. It's been normal for me so far. We'll see the next time I pop it open.
Yeah, I got a raise at work. You know, finally putting me over.
Got that big promotion.
Moving up the card, you know.
This be main event status, upper mid card. Where you at now?
I really don't know. I can't tell, but it's good for me. Yeah. I can tell you that. I don't know how good it's going to be for this show, but it's going to be good for me. You know, Rich, if you're listening, like, I need you to send me that fucking song. But yeah, man, not a lot to talk. We'll get into it. Not a lot to talk about this week. I feel like it's a little light.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of questions from last week that didn't get answered. A lot of news stories from last week that we didn't cover. So even though technically it's a light week, there's still a lot of stuff from last week that we got to go over real quick.
I'd also like everybody that's listening to know that I am deep into the Severance lore. So anyone that's listening, deep in the Yellow Jackets, deep in the Severance, escapism. That's the name of the game right now. What's going on with you, man? Before we jump into things, I never find out what the fuck's going on with you.
Nothing too much. Today I had a speaking engagement. I went over to a college group and spoke to them about the importance of time management and respecting other people.
Oh, I thought you were preaching.
Well, I did preach last Thursday.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
You haven't told me.
My church, one of their campuses is like a ministry center where they do a feeding every Thursday and they provide clothes, do free haircuts, stuff like that, and got asked to preach there. So I did do that. So yeah, I've had a couple of speaking things in the last couple of days here.
That's awesome, bro. Did they put you over?
I mean, they popped, you know. This is awesome chance, you know.
All right, so you were over in the building, and that's all good. But did you pass around the collection plate, and how much was your cut? That's what really needs to be answered here.
Nah, I did it for a hot dog and a handshake. I didn't get.
You did it for exposure.
Yeah, exposure.
They paid you in exposure,
like,
bro.
We'll give you some experience, kid.
Oh man, but that's cool.
Yeah. Besides that, just been chilling, man. Just work, honestly. It's pretty much the only thing going on.
Yeah, I fucking hate work.
Yeah, work's been really busy for me. Pretty stressful, but it's what it is.
Yeah, I feel you. You see these new lights?
Yeah, man. Not looking nice on the stream here.
Yeah, I got rid of I didn't like what's it called?
The ring light?
Halo?
Yeah, the ring light.
The ring light, like, it gives off good light, but it's too centralized. Like, if there's anything that's reflective nearby, you just see a big giant circle. These are those joints that you hook up on the top of the computer screen. And I've got dual screens, so there's 2 of them. And I've got the yellow and the white light going right now, so it kind of gives it a dichotomy, you know.
Stepping up.
Yeah, we got the 4K camera. We got new lights. I think we're good to go. I don't know what the fuck more people would want at this point. Give us your $10. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, you want to watch us live on a live stream? Sign up, patreon.com. Get us that money.
The next step is like customs, you know?
Whoa.
You give us your money, we'll do whatever the fuck you want.
Oh man. But let's jump into what we got going here. So first thing, we had a lot of questions from the Hirooki Goto Zack Sabre Jr. match from New Beginning that we didn't get to.
You know, one thing we need to touch base on, and I don't know if it's in the rundown because I haven't looked because I suck. Are we going to talk Gran Hamada or no?
Yeah, I have it in the news.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I had it in the news last week, but yeah, I can have it in the news again for this week.
Yeah, but Lyric going over time, you know?
You know, all these top stars come in, think they can just come in, change the whole format, take up the whole run sheet.
We tell them this is your time. You need to hit your times. And then, you know, they're like, nah, I'm going over. So the main event gets cut. Everyone's time gets cut. This is basically all over
exactly, again. Yeah, the 6-man. Oh, man. So, so Goto and Zack Sabre Jr., New Beginning Osaka, got a lot of questions here. So jump into those. Rampaging Phoenix says, now that Goto has officially won the big one, who do you think will be the new nearly man in NJPW? Meaning they will win all the major tournaments, but never win the world title.
I think that we're probably very likely too early to determine who that individual, if that individual even will come to fruition, at who that person is. You know, because the thing with Goto is Goto's trajectory was that there was always the intention to get him into the swing of things, and that's why he won those tournaments. But for whatever reason, whether it was crowd connection, timing, politics,
plans changed, pal.
Yeah, like he just never was able to get over that hump. And you know, there was always someone else that came up through the ranks that outflanked him or outranked him or kind of took his run or what have you, you know, throughout the years. And we're kind of past that point. Like there isn't anybody that I can think of right now where I could say the company has invested a lot into them and they have never achieved what the company has projected them to potentially do just yet. I think the closest thing, just off the top of my head, maybe you can come up with a better analogy right now, Jeremy, but the closest thing right now would be like maybe David Finlay, only because he's the leader and he's never won the title, but he's also never won a major tournament. He's never even gotten a title shot. So I could see there being a potential for him to be that person who doesn't get there. But more realistically, I think it's going to be, if this were to occur, it's going to be one of these Reiwa guys who there's too many of them in the pipeline. They can't all achieve at the same level. Someone's going to be the odd man out. And I feel like maybe it's Yuya Uemura.
I mean, I could see that just how things have gone before he got hurt, kind of where things were shaking out with him. But honestly, I think Shota Umino could be a great candidate for that. A great candidate to be the loser. Yeah, I mean, if his push goes the way that it's currently going and he just continues to fail to connect, I mean, he's going to get all shots. I mean, he hasn't really won any tournaments yet, but you know they're going to try. He's a potential favorite to probably win New Japan Cup. They're going to try and get him to win these tournaments and win G1s and stuff like that. They're going to give him all the opportunities, and they might just be gun shy and see like, all right, he's not connecting. Kind of like with Goto in a way, like, all right, he's not connecting. You have Tsuji that's surging. You have Gabe Kidd that's surging. We don't know how, Uemura is going to do coming back from injury. Like you mentioned, there's all these Reiwa guys, all these young guys that are hungry and surging right now that are lapping Umino. And so Umino could, fall into that Goto spot of where the company wants to push him and they give him all the opportunities, but they just never really go with him.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on that idea just yet because they've been so gung-ho to push him in a way that is not reminiscent to what they tried to do with Goto. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you might be right. I don't know. I think it's too early to really say, but like if I was guessing, like I don't think it's going to be Tsuji. I don't think it's going to be Gabe Kidd. We had that extensive conversation last week about their standings and everything like that. But I think the ball's in the court of like, could it be, potentially like a Shooter, a Narita, an Oiwa, a Uemura, maybe Great Okan. Great Okan could, if they pushed Great Okan more, he could be a candidate for this. He's just never even had the opportunity to win anything to fail. Like, that's the thing with him and David Finlay. It's like you have to win something to be put in the position to then fail multiple times. And like they've never been put in that position on that level just yet. Goto got there many, many, many times.
Yeah, I think the closest thing with Okan is just all the rumors we were here, like, oh, the company's high on him. They're going to give him a super big push. And like, he did beat Naito in that one New Japan Cup and knocked Naito out. But then since then, there hasn't really been that sustained kind of strong push. He's kind of been, just an upper mid-card guy, kind of KOPW, tag team scene. But yeah, like you mentioned, they haven't gone really big on him yet with winning a New Japan Cup or G1 or anything like that.
Yeah, but it could be one of those, someone of that ilk. And maybe that's a bit of a cop-out for me because I'm naming so many individuals, but it's hard for me to envision exactly which one of them it's going to be. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a coward to
no, I think
to commit to any one individual.
I think like 5 years down the line, we'll have like a better view of how things are going with these guys. And they could, like, I think one of those guys are going to be a potential for that. But I think now it's a little too early to tell right now.
And hopefully nobody gets put in that. I mean, there is probably some good to a storytelling device such as that, to have someone that you can depend on to be a compelling challenger to draw money with, who never wins the title, because the sanctity and the importance of that title kind of rests on the level of failed challengers, Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know, I didn't look this up, but I'm just kind of jumping back into the old brain here. I think the most failingest person now after Goto who has challenged more times and never won the title has got to be Minoru Suzuki. And there are people who have challenged more times and failed, but eventually they all won the title. You know what I mean? But for a long time, like in this era, it was Suzuki and Goto were like your top two guys that challenged many times and always fell short. And maybe there's some need for that, but I feel like the talent pool is deep enough to where you don't necessarily need to continually put a guy up and propel him down, up and down over and over again. Like, hopefully they can maybe avoid that trope.
Yeah. Next set of questions here from Barry Wall. It says, do you think Goto has had the best kayfabe redemption arc ever in New Japan? 3 or so years ago, he loses clean to Taiji Ishimori. After that, wins a 6-man as part of the best trio team ever. Then Bishamon, and now world champion.
I'm trying to rack my brain right now to think, like, is there a better redemption story that I can think of? I don't know. I mean, there was Manabu Nakanishi, but Nakanishi, like, after having failed in the late 90s, eventually got the gold watch run in the late 2000s, but it was just a cup of coffee. It wasn't necessarily like a prolonged, if I had to think about guys that have redeemed themselves, to me in modern times, it would be like your Shibatas, your Naitos, and your Nakamura's, guys that their initial pushes, either were successful but faltered for some reason, or, like we kind of know the story between all three of those guys. I think those are all really great examples of people that left the company or failed in their pushes and had to reinvent themselves and became top guys, top stars. With Goto, it's a really heartfelt story, but I don't know if we're looking at a prolonged push that is going to ultimately leave him sitting on this perch where he is established as a long-term top guy for New Japan. And by top guy, I don't even mean like top drawing card, ace of the company, but, you know, like a big five sort of mix.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see when he drops the belt. Does he fall back to Bishamon, you know, just doing tag stuff, or does he go back to kind of like the Never Realm? Or do they, they mentioned, do you keep him in that top five? Is he a constant challenger for the world title now?
You know, David Finlay's a guy that like was on his way out of the company and really turned things around and got to a level that I don't think a lot of people saw for him in recent times. I'm trying to think back into like the past of New Japan, and I'm like, I'm really racking my brain thinking like, what were there any major redemptive character arcs that and I'm kind of failing to find one in my brain. Maybe Liger at one point. You know, Liger definitely had a resurgence in the late 2000s, but he was always still kind of like the figurehead ace and everything like that. You know, he went through that cancer scare and everything like that, but I don't know. Time will tell. Yeah, but it's a great story.
Yeah, definitely. He also asked, do you think Zack not being the draw they wanted might hurt his potential of another title reign? I would say, of course not, but look at Shingo.
Yeah, I mean, there is that potential. You know, again, I'm not the numbers guy. Like, I haven't analyzed this to the level that some other, like, you know, I'm not WrestleNomics, so I'm not Brandon Thurston. I couldn't break down, you know, what they did in Chiba 3 years ago, and
you don't have like the turnstile count from
I don't know the
first ring.
I don't know what they did in Shinjuku Face, but you know, I don't know what the perception from within the office is when it comes to Zack Sabre Jr. and his run, whether he's getting attaboys or whether there is a reluctance and a hesitancy to push him as a top Western star coming out of this. I think that'd probably be a great question for, I don't know, maybe like JCast. see if they've talked to someone, or, you know, maybe talk to Trish and Sarah, see what the fuck they have heard. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the drawing ability is definitely going to be a factor in whether or not he wins a title, and especially when you're also trying to get all these Reiwa guys over. I'm sure you're going to want to get some of those guys, get their first title runs going. I mean, I think he's set now as always a challenger and a threat to be champion. And I feel like in a pinch, you could, you know, if somebody gets hurt or something, somebody leaves, you can definitely pivot back to him. But yeah, I don't know what that would do for business.
Yeah. It's a good question, though.
Vert McPolygon says, do you think Zack had a boo-boo face when he came out for the main event? I've never noticed boo-boo face before, but I have heard you guys talk about them, and I thought Zack looked a lot more subdued than usual when he came out and for the first part of the match. If not, how do you spot a boo-boo face?
I didn't think so personally. And this was even watching the match spoiled ahead of time. I think that is the sort of thing that I personally probably would have. I'm not saying it didn't exist, but I just didn't pick up on that perception at all, especially with Zack coming out with the entirety of TMDK. I don't know. They gave me like this is the big star treatment. He's the world champion. Like, you know, he looked like the guy coming out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was necessarily boo-boo face, but I do feel like he was a little bit more like laid back than he normally has been in the last few title matches. Like usually I feel like he's usually like kind of yelling, screaming, kind of pumping the fans up. He just kind of seemed to be like walking down with a serious face. And I don't know if that was a kind of a storytelling of I'm kind of overlooking Goto, so I'm not going to be as pumped, or maybe it was his version of boo-boo face. I'm not quite sure, but I did kind of know the same thing as Macaulay on here, and I do feel like Zack, there was something a little up with him. Maybe not boo-boo face, but he seemed a little bit different compared to previous title matches.
Possibly.
But how would you spot a boo face? How would you answer that question?
When they look like they're gonna cry.
Yeah.
When they look visibly, noticeably pissed, angry, or sad or despondent, and out of character to what not even necessarily like how you would expect them to behave exactly, but more so like what the story calls for them to be behaving as. You know what I mean?
Right, because also there could be a story where you come out pissed because, somebody, cut your hair or, beat you the last match or whatever, jumped you backstage. Like, there are going to be times, when you come out with a more serious face. But if it's not the direction of the feud and you just kind of come out unenergetic, kind of like Umino has been all those times where he comes out, he's not quite as enthusiastic to clap the fans and all that stuff.
Who's famous for it? I mean, the first name that comes to my head is like Sasha. I think she's been noticeable every time she's dropped a title.
Charlotte, I think, as well.
Oh, Charlotte, big time, yeah. A lot of the horsewomen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who else.
I don't think it's something you see much in New Japan, to be honest. I think oftentimes the guys in that company, they're used to doing business and they keep it pretty professional. That's kind of why I made such a remark about Umino's demeanor during that match. And I don't know. There's still people out there who don't even agree with my perception of the match or their demeanors in general, but that's how I saw it.
Yeah, and I heard Rocky on the AW podcast kind of talking about New Japan, and there's kind of like this team mentality that they have there. Like, everybody kind of plays their part, and yeah, it doesn't sound like there is a lot of. I mean, obviously it's pro wrestling, it's going to be egos, but it doesn't sound kind of like we hear in the West where, people are upset, don't want a job. It's like, I feel like New Japan, they know that they have a role, they come and do it, they find out who's up, who's down, and they do it, and you don't really hear all this drama or stories of, so-and-so didn't want to do the job, so-and-so didn't want to do this. I mean, I'm sure that happens, but it doesn't seem to be as big of a thing as it is in U.S. companies. Next question here from Rambo says, how does finally winning the big one change the overall evaluation of Hirooki Goto's career? Has he clinched himself a Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame spot with this win?
That's tough because, I mean, really, when you talk about someone's candidacy for a Hall of Fame spot, usually the three main criteria, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jeremy, they're looking at overall body of work, they're looking at their effect on business, and their influence on the industry.
Yeah, that's right.
And with those being the three things, like, there's no denying how great a worker Hirooki Goto absolutely is. We saw recently, like, Tomohiro Ishii literally getting into the Hall of Fame strictly based on the fact that he excelled so vastly in body of work that it didn't matter for him that he came up short significantly when it comes to overall influence on the industry and his ability to draw, because he's never been put in those positions. Goto's a little different. Like, Goto is definitely a top-notch, top-tier worker. And I think that he can go with anybody on any given night, but I don't see him as being super influential in his generation, especially in his region. That's not to undermine his work. It's just the fact I don't see a lot of copycat Hirooki Gotos that are out there. I don't see the deep roots of his style of work or influence all over the fingerprints of the Reiwa guys that are here. And he's never really been put in the position to have the type of drawing ability as like an Okada, Tanahashi, Naito, or something like that. Only now has he finally achieved this major title win, and he's won a bunch of tournaments, and he's had a lot of other minor secondary titles and tag team titles in New Japan. He's had a fantastic career, and I'm sure he's made a lot of money. I don't know that it's a Hall of Fame career right now. And maybe that is a little bit harsh on Goto. But it's just the facts. I don't think that he has done enough right now to be a clinch for the Hall of Fame, unless you never know. The stars sometimes align.
Yeah.
And with the voting regions, it could happen, but I wouldn't bet on it, especially with how deep Japan usually is.
Yeah, I feel like this title reign can inch him closer to that, and especially if he carries on the same drawing ability that he did with New Beginning in Osaka, and if all his main events are kind of packing out houses, I feel like maybe that could open door, like you said, if the stars align and there's not a lot of great candidates in Japan region, and he's doing these big main events. I mean, it could end up where he does kind of slide in. So next question here from Discord Daddy says, sub 30 main event mains feel so much more action packed. Can you talk a bit about the New Japan main event style and how it's evolved from the Okada epics to what we're getting today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's necessarily this through line, and maybe someone that's doing a bit more research on the main event match times could speak more highly to this, but I don't know if I've noticed a stark shift in the lengths of times, especially when it comes to title matches with New Japan ever since Okada left, but I could certainly see how there could over time be an incremental move towards shorter ring time for main events. That is something that occurred, in the 80s. That's probably like the most famous example of this sort of thing was, coming out of the 70s, you had Inoki on top of the company for forever and having very long, arduous, craftsman style 70s wrestling matches. And then Riki Choshu came around, and Riki Choshu sort of like pioneered that, what they called high spurt or high energy sprint style wrestling matches, where nowadays when we hear like high spurt, we think of like, well, you probably think of something sexual. I don't know, but like, what? Spurt, skeet. That's what I think of. But, the high energy sort of thing where you probably think of like, I don't know, like the Spot Fest, 10-minute, blah, 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 boom, 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 that sort of thing. But that's not really what that terminology stood for. It really just stood for the idea that a match could end very quickly for any reason, whether that was a flash submission or a quick pinfall, or someone could get knocked out, and it just kind of shortened the match times in general. It added an element of excitement, and it was based a little bit more on realism, which was kind of an evolution of like Inoki's ideology behind, strong style being a realistic martial art sort of thing. Mm-hmm. It kind of grew out of that, and Fujinami and Choshu were like the two guys that kind of introduced that into the company. By the time you get to the mid 90s, and you got, Muto, Hashimoto, and Chono, and all these guys, they were kind of going the total opposite direction. When you look at like what the Four Pillars were doing in All Japan, they were building much more epic, long form storytelling matches that were based more on that was an evolution of like the old school NWA style of storytelling in wrestling, which is coincidentally much closer what Tanahashi and Okada ended up doing in the 2010s than what New Japan was based on in the 90s with Muto and those guys. And you watch a Hashimoto match, and he could fucking knock somebody out or drop him with a brain buster, and that's pretty much it. And that's kind of closer to what this style of match, what Goto is sort of known for, and to some degree, like what Zack Sabre Jr. was doing. Zack is a guy that can tap somebody out or, hit them with an O'Connor roll and then fucking finish them. And I sort of like that there is there isn't always an expectation that it needs to go 45 plus, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that when things do, when the time is right and it needs to go that extra length of time, it's more special than when it's like, okay, it's Okada, it's the main event. This is what he does every time. And it's repetitive, you know, and I'm not even trying to shit on that style of, you know, work. I get it, but I do like the idea of like a 20-minute main event. Like, that's sick.
Yeah. And, you know, some guys just can't do that 40-minute epic. So I'm glad that they're kind of pivoting a little bit, because we saw what happened with Umino and Zack at the Tokyo Dome. It's like some guys just aren't built to go that long. Sometimes the story of the match doesn't call for it to go that long. It's like, you know, sometimes it's just not built that way. Also, you look at like Okada, Omega, like those matches were just so epic and were built up more and more to kind of reach those hour-long limits. But, you know, it's like what your regular title match, I don't think, it doesn't have to go that 40, 50, 60-minute range. I think a good, solid, 20-minute back and forth, you hit your finish one time, boom, and get the win. Like, that's perfectly well, too.
Yeah, you know, there's different views on this. You know, someone that I respect that I've heard talk about this kind of subject a lot, James Boyd from One Nation Radio, good friend of mine. We don't always agree on wrestling, but James is like, his whole thing is like, unless you're going, and I don't want to misquote him, but I think he says something like, unless you're going past 4 stars, you don't need to go greater than 20 minutes. Like, that's his whole view. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's like, don't waste my time. Unless you're giving me like greatness, you don't need to go past a certain, you can get your shit in within this allotted time frame. I don't view wrestling that way personally, although I kind of relate to the sentiment. I see what he's saying with that. But to me, I just kind of view wrestling as like simulated fighting, and in real fighting and MMA and stuff, a fight can end so many different ways within so many different parameters of time. I like the idea of, I think there should be other types of finishes that we're not used to seeing in wrestling implemented more often to expand the amount of expectations that you have towards a wrestling match. Like, I think that there should be times where people not legitimately, but like within the kayfabe are knocked out. I think there should be times where there are some non-finishes if it's implemented in the right way. Like, I think there are other ways to do this. Like, I think someone should be able to get like Flash knocked out, Flash rolled up, Flash submitted. For instance, for better or for worse, whether it was the right business decision, I loved that time when Mox just fucked up CM Punk real quick on TV and just got him the fuck out of it. That's the kind of, and like, I'm not saying it needs to happen all the time, but like when you establish a finish like that, or you have varying different levels of degrees of match length when it comes to the main event, it can go 10 minutes, it can go 25 minutes, it could go an hour. You don't actually know. Mm-hmm. There's a greater sentiment of like excitement behind that.
Yeah. Although unpredictability.
I've seen it backfire too, though.
Yeah.
Like for instance, there was a fight where Bob Backlund fought Nobuhiko Takada in UWFI back in the day, and Takada gave him a back kick. And I think it was a work from my understanding, but there is the old, like, there's the story that it wasn't the real finish, but like it was a legit, like he got hurt. Either way, it doesn't matter. Like the fight stopped quick. And the paying audience was pissed because they felt like we paid to see this epic match between these two grappling masters, blah, blah, blah. And then this is what we got. You know what I mean? And so it can backfire if you misjudge and miss time. But yeah, I like the unpredictability of things.
Yeah. So our next question's here from Different Angle 720. With Goto's glorious victory and the buzz behind the last 2 matches, do you think New Japan is in a healthy position heading into New Japan Cup?
I think that it doesn't hurt, right? But we've had some downtime, and I'm guessing the wrestlers deserve some downtime. But it's tricky with momentum, because sometimes things like this, not that New Japan's had shows of this caliber in this era, but they've had some really momentous moments and then fail to capitalize on it for one reason or another. And that's kind of been the up and down ebb and flow we've talked about over the past few years. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that, I mean, so far, if we're being honest and you look at New Japan since the tail end of last year, they've had almost nothing but great shows in terms of the major shows, back to back, boom, boom, boom. Like the only one that I could really throw criticisms at were the 1-4 and the 1-5 show for different reasons. Mm-hmm. But like all the US shows have been fire. All of the like shows between Wrestle Kingdom, like before and after, like all the big shows, they've all been really fantastic. They're on a really great hot streak right now.
Yeah, I think also they have all the right players right now. Guys are starting to peak at the right time, and people are really behind Tsuji and Gabe Kidd. Like we mentioned, we got Yuya Uemura coming back, and so I feel like there's a lot of young guys that are just really hungry. I feel like a lot of
Jake Lee.
We got Guns and Gallows getting ready to come back.
Oh god. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, but seriously, I feel like they are in a very good spot, and going to the New Japan Cup, I think there's a lot of interesting kind of story elements that's going to play out in that tournament, and I think the next big test will be Sakura Genesis to see kind of what they do there.
The anniversary show.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Other question, while we can all agree Goto finally holding the world title is a great thing, do you think it is telling that instead of belting up a new gen talent, they went with an older gen guy, which people have complained about before?
No, because they never put the title on him before. It was completely unexpected from a certain aspect. There are elements to what they did there with the timing of how they did it, with it being new beginning in this arena, an arena that like Goto has headlined in this month on this show many, many times in the past and come up short. I think it's not quite the same thing as like putting the belt back on Tetsuya Naito again. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not putting the belt on Naito again. It's not putting the belt on Tanahashi again. Not putting the belt on Okada again. It's like this guy, he's never been the champion. And you look at how he drew for that main event. If you saw the way the people were, rushing the barricade to touch this man, clearly they wanted him to win. They were behind him, and I think it's totally different when you have a guy that you kind of always wanted to win the title, but you never thought he really would win, and then he does win. I think it's totally different than having an established champion main eventer guy win again.
I mean, the closest thing in modern times in a major promotion that I can think of, and I'm sure there are other examples on a more minor scale, but when we're talking about the big three, right? New Japan, AEW, WWE, like Kofi Mania is the closest thing that I can think of. And even that's not a perfect analogy, but there are some similarities to what happened there. And, the real emotions that were behind that. The other thing too, is we've talked about this many times, is that as they're building up this young generation, they need players to be the foil and obstacle for those guys to overcome as time goes on. And, with so many of the major stars over the past decade having left New Japan and some of them being on their very last legs, it is important and vital that they establish these other stars who are a little bit older to be the in-between guys while they're establishing the Reiwa stars.
Yeah. Hawaiian Punch BB says, with the older veterans being Goto's first title defenses, do you think Goto's run as champ is going to be similar to Shibata's never title run?
I don't think that necessarily it's about him earning the respect. So this is where there's a big difference there. Shibata's run was about the fact that he had literally pissed off and insulted the dad generation, like the third generation that was before him. And so that was part of his redemption arc to re-ingratiate himself into New Japan as an actual member of the roster and to redeem himself by taking on all of these established old foes. I can see why you might like draw some comparisons because, you know, Goto never has overcome Tanahashi and Goto never did overcome Nagata, not on this level for the title sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so maybe there is some exercising demons of the past sort of thing, but this isn't about him establishing himself and becoming accepted the way that Shibata needed to become accepted. This is basically some old country beef where it's just like, I'm young, y'all are old. You're going to get these hands. I'm going to fuck y'all up. And honestly, I think that these are simply nostalgia.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, it's more, they're leaning into the nostalgia, which, you know, worked for drawing in Osaka. And, you know, I haven't seen the anniversary numbers, but I'm sure it's going to work. People are going to want to see, you know, Goto versus Tanahashi in a title match, or probably the last time ever. So I think, you know, leaning into that Goto kind of nostalgia run and Goto versus some of these guys as in a championship matchup, I think is going to draw.
Here's the other thing with it. For better or for worse, as much as people don't want to hear this, Goto, any title defense he has, no matter who the opponent is, he's always in danger of dropping that title.
Yeah.
So I don't actually think he's going to lose to Tanahashi or Nagata, but they have much better shots at winning the title with him as champion than if they were challenging against, say, like, I don't know, Konosuke Takeshita, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's also that uncertain element where you're like, I mean, Nagata and Tanahashi could fuck him up. You never know. Like,
hold us justice suplex.
Then the other thing is, this is why I'm personally not of the belief that this is going to be a prolonged title reign like other people, unless, you know, plans change. Maybe if they get happy with the business that they're doing under him, you know, maybe they do call an audible. But I think that these are give me title matches to give him a somewhat strong little title run, so that in April, whoever that person is, I'm still kind of banking on it being David Finlay personally.
Same, yeah.
I think he drops the title after having a couple successful title defenses that probably draw money, and he's not hurting any of the young generation by putting them away at this point in time. And there's plenty of time after he drops the title and he's the former champion and he goes into the G1 where he can do business with all those guys, the guys that people are probably clamoring for him to have title defenses against. But I don't think they're ready to sacrifice that young generation at the altar of Goto just yet.
Yeah. Dark Soldier says, guys, some people told me why I don't just give up. I tell them because he didn't, and I point to Goto winning the world title. That's something we should all do, right?
Yeah, very inspirational, and you know, it's pretty awesome, honestly. That's another thing too, is like when we were asked the question about, you know, them putting a title on an old guy, it's like, did you see the year that Goto had in 2024? Like, it's deserved.
Yeah, definitely. Swagger says, am I crazy, or is New Beginning the best NJPW show in years?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that there's a strong case right now that it's going to win show of the year. Yeah. I think it was much better than both dome shows.
I agree. Yeah, it was, just from top to bottom, an incredible show. Doc says, after this last New Beginning, how do you see the dynamics of the Reiwa generation, and where do you see Takeshita fitting in with him being left off New Japan Cup? People are feeling as though he isn't figured into those.
Yeah, that's a great question. I hadn't thought about the idea that Takeshita's not involved in that tournament. I
think that the timing was just hard with Revolution. It's March 9th. That's 2 days after New Japan Cup starts. So you would have had to like give him some kind of bye or something, or be on like the right side of the bracket or something. It'd have been a little hard.
Yeah, I always think that the politics are going to be very difficult when you have someone that their primary, loyalty and allegiances to AEW. And that's not even like a slight against AEW. It's just, it is what it is. Like, how can you serve two masters? You know, that's your primary company. It's sort of like when I don't know if you recall, but like Stan Hansen, he was the AWA champion, and they wanted dates on him, and he was like, "Oh no, Baba said I got to come to work." And they're like, "You got to drop the title, son. Like, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I can't make it. I got dates in Japan. Like, I'm going to work for Baba." And they're like, "If you don't show up for work, we're gonna strip you of the title." He's like, "Fuck it, I'm taking the title with me. Like, you guys can do whatever you want to do, but you know, until you start paying me the way Baba pays me, I'm not coming to work for you guys."
Yeah.
So it's just that's the sort of thing, like when these guys are, you know, shared talent.
Yeah. MJ says, speaking of pace, how about the booking of New Beginning and how each current feud leads into the first round and possibly second round cup matchups? We could also be getting rematches of Great Okan and Shota and Drilla and Shingo. Feels organized. Do you like?
I do like the potential trajectories that we see and how there are story elements already sort of laid out. It does make it a little bit predictable, but that's okay because there is some structure there. All the same, the buys don't make any fucking sense, and they literally had to this year just like give up the ghost and be like, yeah, they're random. We don't fucking know. Like, different people got buys. Like, that's just what it is. Like, so
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to make the buys make sense. Or, I mean, there's more people. Like, throw some young lions in there if you need to, like, fill out the tournament instead of just giving people random buys. No.
I agree.
All right, so that covers all the questions from last week's New Beginning in Osaka. So we did get the announcement of the 53rd anniversary show card, which will be Thursday, March 6th at Ota City Gym. So main event, IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Hirooki Goto will defend against Hiroshi Tanahashi. The junior title will be on the line. Desperado will defend against Francesco Akira. Naito, Hiromu, Shingo, and Tsuji versus Evil, Dick Togo, Yujiro, and Sho. Gabe, Kid, and Drilla versus Narita and Kanemaru. Taichi, Uemura, and Taka versus Sonata. Taiji, Ishimori, and Gato. Oiwa and Hartley Jackson versus Balak, Fale, and Chase. And there will be a NJPW World TV Open Challenge as El Phantasma will defend against a mystery opponent.
That'll draw butts and seats. No, that's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the 3-6 show. You know, the big matches on top, they look pretty promising. You know, the anniversary show is never like the most compelling of shows, especially since it's kind of sandwiched between the end of New Beginning and then the start of the New Japan Cup. It kind of has this strange in-between role, but they've broken the tradition. We're not doing the junior heavyweight thing this year, so there's a little bit more stakes involved. With that being said, you know, we're gonna do a full preview here, I guess, next week leading into the 3-6 show. So, you know, I'm sure we'll have some more insightful thoughts, but overall, I think it looks good. I think it's gonna be a good show.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm really looking forward to that Despy Akira matchup there.
That will probably steal the show that night. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also got the New Japan Cup 2025 brackets that were revealed a couple weeks ago as well. So on the left side of the bracket, we have Yota Tsuji versus Evil. The winner will face David Finlay. Uemura versus Sonata. The winner will face Yoshihashi. Oiwa versus Chase Owens. Winner faces Zack Sabre Jr. Gabe Kidd versus Narita. Winner faces Taichi. And then on the right side, we'll have ELP versus Great Okan. Winner faces Shota. Naito versus Callum Newman. Winner faces Cobb. Ishii versus Drilla. Winner faces TJP. And Bolton Oleg versus Bad Luck Fale. And the winner will face Shingo. So what are your thoughts on the New Japan Cup bracket?
I think that for the most part, I can pretty easily chart a lot of the different like trajectories that we're seeing here. I am kind of interested as to what's going to happen when it comes to the Bullet Club guys. You know, hold on one second. My little buddy's getting worked up. I mean, he's probably got food coming.
All right. Yeah, I think it's a interesting tournament kind of layout, but like you, I do kind of see the path to what the finals is going to be. And speaking, picking winners and, the path layout here, our friend over at sporterprowrestling.com, Chris Samsa, once again, is running his New Japan Cup Pick'em contest / I guess, I don't know if there's any prizes, but just kind of the pick'ems that he does every year. So sporterprowrestling.com, you can go there. Super easy to fill your bracket out, make your predictions, get entered in the contest there. I've already submitted my bracket, and I guess maybe we can talk more about it next week. Chris will be on the show next week to preview New Japan Cup with us, and so maybe we can get into our kind of where our final predictions there.
Yeah, we'll get there. As of right now, and this could change, and we'll see how I feel next week when we do the preview show. But yeah, I'm still going David Finlay.
Overall, yeah, I'm going Finlay. I guess for right now, when I entered in the contest, I have Finlay Shingo as my finals.
That is that's a pretty good guesstimate. Just kind of looking at the broad strokes. I mean, we're going to do more in-depth thing next week, but I could easily see that because, I mean, yeah, I think that's a very likely final.
Yeah. Dark Soldier says, another tournament comes by and still no involvement from Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler. I know it's pointless to ask, but why aren't they in Japan?
You got to ask Rocky and the office and those people that are the decision makers who, give out they arrange the tickets and they book these guys to bring them in. I don't know. I mean, Fred Rosser, he's never he came for what, the Strong shows?
No, he missed those. He had some kind of family emergency when those happened, and he has made it.
So he's never even worked Japan.
Yeah.
So, and then, Tom Lawler, he did the G1. He's done a couple, shows, but it's been a while, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we are close to episode 400, so we can see if the tradition will continue. We'll get Rocky on here. Maybe we ask him.
We, I don't know. Maybe it's his affiliation with Matt Riddle. They seem to be doing a lot of drugs. So
yeah, the Filthy Bros.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, and MLW.
Can't say I've seen any of it.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard people talk about it. He also asks, is this New Japan Cup difficult to predict? Not because it's chock full of talent who could win, but because there's not many viable talent to pick right now. I still expect the tournament to be good. It's just I wish there was more spice to it and a couple of outside talent.
Yeah, I think there is an element that there's less of that sort of that element of having the wild card guys come in from the outside. Last year we had Jack Perry, and then a couple years ago, Shima was in this, and it's kind of fun to have those types of guys in here. An outsider, and you would think with them having, again, I hadn't even thought about Takeshita until we were on this show, and that question got brought up, and then I'm like, hey, is he in the Never Champion? Why the fuck isn't he in this thing? But it makes sense. But yeah. I think there are some things they could have done to liven it up a bit, but overall, I think it's with all the returns that are happening and then, question marks like Jeff Cobb and stuff like that. I think that this is a pretty exciting tournament, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of really good matches. So that's going to take us to the shows that are coming up this week. We have the Fantastica Mania tour has been going on. There's been several shows that have happened over the last couple of days that have not been televised like usual. So the two televised shows that we will have coming up on Korakuen Hall on February 27th and 28th. So we'll go through those cards right now and give any thoughts or predictions. So on the 27th, we'll have Kamatachi and Teton taking on Max Star and Zulia. Then we'll have a Revelos Increíbles tag match. Hechicero and Ninja Mac taking on Barbaro, Cavanaro, and Desperado. MLW World Tag Team titles on the line. Cozy Max, Okamura, and Satoshi Kojima will take on Magnus and Rohito. Then we'll have a Lightning singles.
Deperdoras.
Yeah. Then we'll have a Lightning singles match with Xandacon Jr. versus Neon.
Oh, that's gonna fucking rock.
Yeah. And then Averno, Raider, Soberano, and Taiji Ishimori versus Tanahashi, Masquerada, Mystico, and Stigma. And the two big singles matches here, semi-main event, Ultimo Guerrero versus Atlantis Jr., and the main event, Volador Jr. versus Templario.
So my understanding was that Bone Soldier Jr. was replacing Taiji Ishimori on these shows.
That is correct, yes. It is actually Bone Soldier Jr. in that matchup, not Taiji Ishimori.
Which, by the way, like, I know they toned down some of the iconography, but like, are we not going to acknowledge that this is absolutely 100% a Nazi gimmick in 2025 still?
Yeah, apparently he was doing like the too sweet salute, kind of in the Nazi hand motion. And apparently somebody was saying that his whole Bone Soldier character is linked from like some Nazi anime comic book character or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. You know, Trump's getting away with it. Elon's allowed to do it. You know, Banyan did it the other day at CPAC. So, you know, if all these dudes are doing the Nazi salute and, you know, whatever, I guess at that point it's okay for Taiji Ishimori to also be a Nazi. So, you know, Nazism alive and well in 2025.
Yeah. And then with that Neon and Xandacon Jr. match, so that with the Lightning match, that is a 10-minute time limit rules there. And yeah, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Both Xandacon and Neon are both two young guys that have been getting a lot of buzz. Also, we saw Xandacon in the World Tag League teaming up with Tsuji. And then Neon, he's, you know, part of the Sky team right now with Mystico and Maka Dorada in CMLL. And he's just a crazy high flyer. So this should be a lot of fun.
Has there been a good, I know in the past, some of the guys from like Voices of Wrestling or even, you know, Cubs fan have put out like primers to prep people for Fantastica Mania. Has there been anything like that this year that you've seen?
I have not. Right now I'm kind of looking through the previews that are on NJPW1972.com, but I'm sure Cubs fan has probably put something out and I just haven't seen it.
All right, so we're raw dogging it this year. Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously the Hechicero Barbaro Cavernario tag match is a bit of a preview, but I'm kind of looking at that Ninja Mac Desperado pairing.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume Ninja Mac's probably there to eat a pin, but you know, Desperado versus Ninja Mac, that could be something if they, you know, build it the right way here. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in the company in May for Super Junior. So
yeah,
probably a little smoke to that fire there.
Yeah. The Tanahashi match is the Black Cat Memorial match, that 8-man tag.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about that last week, the long history between Black Cat and Tanahashi. So it makes sense that he'd be involved in that. It's definitely got a higher billing this year than it normally has in the past. And that's probably part of that reason. Ultimo Guerrero versus Atlantis Jr. That's probably going to rock.
Yeah, and they're 3-1 right now, with Atlantis having more wins over Ultimo, and they've pretty much been feuding since Atlantis Jr. Has taken that moniker and been CMLL.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure how many times they've wrestled or anything like that. So yeah, 3-1. That's less than I imagine it probably would be.
Yeah, I feel like they've done a lot of tags. I mean, we saw them Fantastica Mania 2019, Atlantis Jr. and Atlantis teaming up against Guerrero brothers.
That's when he debuted.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Volador Jr. and Templario are two of the best, you know, going luchadors out there. And I mean, even Volador at this advanced age, which he's not old, but, you know, he's been, you know, active for so many years and he's still just fantastic. So I'm sure that is going to really deliver. I think that this is a pretty strong Fantastica Mania little Korakuen show.
Yeah, and Templario and Volador, 5-4 record there with Volador having the most wins there in that rivalry. Also, something to remember is that Templario is a member of the United Empire. I totally forgot.
I forgot that too. It is interesting because this is the least exposure we've had to a Fantastica Mania tour in, God, it feels like since they first started doing it in like 2010, 2011, something like that. So for them to have this many shows, but only these two make air. I know we've complained in the past about the nature of them feeling obligated to broadcast every single show. Which sometimes I get that, but at the same time, like, this isn't just a regular house tour show. It is Fantastica Mania. And like, I kind of like to follow the through lines and watch this tour a little bit. So,
right. And then the brother/faction tag team tournament. It's always been something kind of fun to follow along and
super meaningful. It matters. And I think there's a happy medium here. Like, I don't need to see 6 nights of Fantastica Mania, but 2 feels a little short for me. Like maybe do 3.
Yeah.
I think I could live with 1 extra show. Especially since these are all seemingly probably like the payoffs to whatever storylines have been going on throughout the tour, but we didn't see any of the tour. So we're just kind of, parachuting in and watching the matches, which is fine. I also would have liked for there to be more title match, like, stakes involved. And so far for this show, it's just the World Tag Team title match from MLW, which I know it's a prestigious title, but
yeah, very weird to not have any CMLL titles on the line, not any New Japan titles.
But Court Bauer was like, God damn it, this fucking this world of ours is not gonna stop. We're gonna make sure these titles get defended abroad.
Yep. So that takes us to February 28th. Once again in Korakuen Hall, opening match, we got Max Star versus a Raider. So these are 2 young up-and-coming guys in CMLL.
When I think of Max Star, I think of Max Moon. I hope he comes out in a Max Moon costume.
When I look at his picture, I mean, his mask and the colors are kind of remind me of Max Moon too.
Conan was the original Max Moon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew that.
I did, yeah.
I've never heard him tell that story before.
Then following that, there will be Tanahashi, Ninja Mac, Taguchi, and Zulia versus Kamatachi, Mascara, Kanatatsu Tomato, which is Suji, Teton, and Zandakan Jr.
Why is he working under that gimmick instead of as just like Yota? Because he worked as Yota in Mexico.
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, we saw him kind of bust this whole thing out during the Christmas Korakuens, and I
forgot that's what that was.
Yeah. So
if you hadn't have told me that Mascara Kantatsu Tomato was Suji, I would have just been like, all right, yeah, someone from CMLL is coming. I don't know. I was literally, when you're reading this, I was like, who the fuck is Kamatachi again? And I was like, oh, yeah. That's
Hiromu.
Oh, apparently, well, no, remember, it's not Hiromu.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, it's different.
It's different.
Then we'll have a Revelos Incredibles 6-man tag match. Elias Jr., Stigma, and Bone Soldier Jr. versus Cozy Max and Ultimo Guerrero.
Former champions Cozy Max on that night, most likely.
We'll see. That should be a fine matchup there.
You gotta see Okamura raise the roof.
Yes, come out there, jumping around.
He's gonna come out like he's fucking
Harlem Heat.
Stevie Ray in 1997,
Yeah. Then another Incredibles Revelos matchup here with Desperado, Neon, and Templario versus Magnus, Rojito, and Volador Jr.
Another thing too is I was like, why the fuck is Ultimo Guerrero teaming with Satoshi Kojima and Okamura? I was like, I guess it doesn't matter because it's Fantastica Mania. And then I remembered like, oh, that's the gimmick.
Yeah, the Incredible Rivals.
Yeah.
And then we get to the business end here. 3 big singles matches. First, we have Barbaro Cavernario versus Hechicero. They have a 2-2 singles record, so they will somebody will get the advantage here in their rivalry.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I don't think that the undercard of this show looks nearly as good as night 1, but the top 3 matches, I don't want to say they're better, but it's just, we've only got the 2 major singles matches on the first night, and we've got 3 back-to-back, and they're all, for me, the Hechicero Cavernario match, that's the one I'm looking forward to the most. I've never seen them wrestle each other. I know they have before, but it's going to be my first time seeing that.
Yes.
Kind of, however they interact with one another. I don't know.
Yeah, first time since 2021 they'll be facing off. Last time that was for the CMLL World Title. So I think it's going to be a fun matchup here. These are 2 great guys. I feel like Hechicero is kind of on a resurgence, or maybe it's a surge, maybe uptick, whatever you want to say it. But 2 incredibly talented guys, should be a really great matchup.
It's kind of fucked up. You called it the world title when it's the world heavyweight title.
They
have weight classes there. I think it's fucked up in AEW when they call the men's title the AEW world title. And then they call the women's title the AEW Women's World Title.
Instead of calling it the AEW's Men's World Title.
They don't call it the Men's World Title.
Right.
They just call it the World Title. And the World Title goes on last. But it does not go on last? The Women's World Title. Unless it's like, a TV special like
Grand Slam Australia.
A Grand Slam Australia, which apparently we just found out was actually a Rampage.
Collision.
Or Collision. It's all the same shit.
Rampage did.
Anything that's not Dynamite is Rampage.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Then a semi-main event's going to be Mascara Dorada versus Soberano Jr. They do have a 3-0 record, with Dorada having 3 wins over Soberano Jr. right now.
That will very likely be the most athletic match of the 2 nights, and they'll probably be looking to blow everybody out of the water, those 2 guys in particular. So yeah, I've got high expectations for that one.
Yeah, I feel like Mascara Dorada has been on an incredible run lately and getting a lot of buzz, and like I mentioned, being a part of the Sky team in CMLL. This should be lots of flips, lots of high flying. Yeah, this should definitely steal a show here.
A New Japan, contracted talent, Soberano Jr.,
Yeah. And then the main event for the MLW World Middleweight Championship, we will have Mystico defending against Averno. They have a 25-5 record, with Mystico having 25 wins over Averno.
Yeah, they've wrestled a lot. Averno, I don't know, man. This, to me, I'm sure this will be good because these guys are both very good, and it's such a storied rivalry. They've had so many matches with one another, but Averno's old, man, and Mystico, this almost just feels like an ego sort of thing. Like, Mystico's got to go on last. He's going to stay out there for 1,000,000 years, kissing all the babies and glad handing everybody. And even after it's the last night. So even after they do the group photo, they're all going to leave. Mystico's going to stay out there forever. And he gets to defend his middleweight world title from MLW, which is fine. But I don't know, Averno's not, to me, and I'm not the biggest lucha head out there, but it's not necessarily screaming top notch Fantastica Mania finisher. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like that's more of your earlier in the tour.
Yeah,
kind of singles match.
Especially with the types of talents that we've seen Mystico headlined this tour with on the last night, or, you know, second to last night. And I don't mean to disrespect Averno. I mean, again, my understanding, legendary guy, has a lengthy, you know, very well respected and everything like that, but not someone that, like, if I was in town, if I was looking at the marquee and I was thinking about buying the ticket for the night, I'm like, oh, I got to see Mystico because I need to see him get the comeuppance against Averno. You know, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't even wear a mask.
Speaking of masks, Discord Daddy says top 3 favorite masks for Fantastica Mania.
It's a good question. I don't know what my favorite. I think Liger is my all-time favorite mask.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. I mean, I like Teton's mask, and like his kind of mask that he has over the mask. They're always pretty cool also.
Yes. I'm trying to think, like, as a kid, Juventud Guerrero is like one of my all-time favorites. And like, I really loved his mask.
I love Psychosis mask as a kid.
I like Psychosis too. And I guess if I had to pick a third one, I don't know. Well, Parka?
Chairman?
Parka's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, Ray. There's a lot.
Yeah. If we're opening up to all, just not like these current guys. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a ton to go after.
Sting.
Sting.
When he wears the mask and then he takes it off.
Dan Coffin says dashing Cody Rhodes in the mask.
No, I like Sting when Sting would wear his own face paint mask and then take it off, and then he's really got the face paint underneath.
Yeah.
I always thought it was funny that Vader wore a mask, and I'm like, he takes that shit off like in almost every big match ever. Like, why do you even wear that shit? Like, it's whatever.
You know, gotta have the gimmick, pal.
I remember he lost a mask versus mask match to Kane. I'm like, why? He takes it off every match.
And you can see his whole face.
You can see his face. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I'll do the news, Jeremy.
All right.
With this new setup, I can.
You got to run now. All right. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so let's jump into the news. New Japan has announced that the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship will be defended at both Windy City Riot on Friday, April 11th, and Resurgence on Friday, May 9th. Got a question here from Death Triangle 720. He says, with the news of the world title being defended twice in the U.S., do you think they have a big enough match for Goto or the winner after Sakura Genesis?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like with Windy City Riot, I think they're going to put a lot of their eggs in the, Tanahashi's last U.S. match basket to help draw there. I'm not quite sure. I mean, we're assuming that Finlay is going to win and beat him. Yeah, who do you put Finlay up against that would draw in Chicago? I'm not sure.
Jay White,
dude, there would be people would love that.
If they did that, people would freak. They would actually do business.
Yeah.
I was kind of joking, but yeah, people actually would freak out.
Yeah.
I don't mean like, it's not like there'd be a groundswell like, oh shit, they'd fucking sell out, overnight or anything. But like, there's a lot of Bullet Club fans that would want to see that match. I don't know. It's a great question. I'm interested to see what they do. I'm going to let it play out,
Yeah.
In other news, Kenta, we had speculated on this back in January, but it's now been confirmed he has officially rejoined Pro Wrestling Noah. So, we know it's a true send-off because he posted a photo of himself one time only with arch rival, most hated nemesis, Yoshihashi. Yep, so,
there was a big press conference, signed his Noah contract, and he's back to his origins.
Yep. After successfully partnering with Extreme Channel in the UK for popular airings of Destruction in Kobe, King of Pro Wrestling, and Power Struggle since 2023, NJPW has inked an extended broadcasting agreement with the channel in the UK that will see the company become a tentpole broadcast offering for the channel in 2025. The agreement will see major events airing in full on Extreme via Channel Box, Freeview Channel 271 in the UK, beginning with the British television premiere of Wrestle Kingdom 19. It'll be airing Saturday, February the 15th at 6 p.m. and Wrestle Kingdom 19 will be followed by Wrestle Dynasty in late February, with repeat airings complementing new events on a bi-monthly basis. So, yeah, good news if you're in the UK and you're too cheap to pay for, or you want to watch it in stunning 4K or HD or whatever the fuck they broadcast in over there. I'm sure it's better than whatever the 1080p that's on New Japan World. Like literally my camera that I'm broadcasting on right now is better quality than what New Japan is.
Yeah, it's always funny with like these TV deals because like, yeah, I mean, that's cool, but it's like just, yeah, pay, your $9.99 to get New Japan World and you'll just have it.
The day after Windy City Riot and Wintrust Arena in Chicago, NJPW is going to be a huge part of the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo presented by our friends at Pro Wrestling Tees. And JPW stars will be meeting fans from both 599 at C2E2, including Hiroshi Tanahashi, Gabe Kidd, and ZSJ. So when this says our friends, I'm not referring to our friends. I'm just reading the copy from
yeah, that was the news release from New Japan. So New Japan's talking about their friends at Pro Wrestling.
Their friends. According to Fightful Select, New Japan Pro Wrestling are not expecting Henare to appear at all in 2025 and have made plans without him in mind. However, that will completely depend on his recovery process, as he was set to have surgery before the end of 2024, but there has been no word on how that surgery went. So that's unfortunate news. All the best wishes to him.
Yeah.
Gabe Kidd defeated the Butcher on Collision this week, and Clark Connors is set for an AEW appearance. Dave Meltzer kind of burying the lead there a little bit, just putting out the most nonchalant and non-descriptive tweet, just saying Clark Connors headed to AEW. No other details, no descriptors. And the internet ran wild with this shit. And maybe rightfully so. I mean, we don't really even know the parameters of any of it, but we have a lot of questions about this. So Death Triangle 720 says, with Gabe and Clark taking bookings in AEW, do you think that they're building potential matches for Forbidden Door this year?
Yeah, I think there could be planting seeds for a Gabe Kenny rematch because Don Callis was backstage watching the Gabe Kidd versus Butcher match. So I think they're kind of redoing what they did with Ospreay and Kenny, where, I think Gabe will kind of temporarily maybe be a Don Callis family representative, especially with Forbidden Door being in London this year. I think he'd be a great candidate to have a big match on that show. So yeah, I think that they're going to do that whole thing. Yeah, Don's going to represent Gabe versus Kenny in a big rematch, and maybe Gabe's going to finally get the win here.
Okay. And then Rambo and Slam Pig says, any thoughts on Gabe Kidd making an appearance on AEW and getting a win over a lower mid-carder?
Yeah, I mean, again, if it's building to him versus Kenny, I think it's good. I mean, they did a great job with the presentation on Dynamite. It was a great video package. And then, yeah, him and the Butcher had a very hard-hitting matchup. I mean, Butcher's a guy made perfectly for the Never division, and both those guys, they were big chops, big lariats all throughout the match. And so, yeah, I thought it made Gabe Kidd look like a star, and the crowd gave him a good reaction. So, yeah, that was good.
Rich Latta asks, should AEW just give Gabe Kidd a live mic and let him off and let him let off Chris Charlton's list of grievances until the roster rushes the ring? Part 2, isn't it amazing that AEW has finally acknowledged that there was an all-time classic match that happened on January 5th? Excalibur couldn't stop talking about it. Wonder what changed. LOL.
Well, yeah, I think what changed is like, I guess we're doing this, second match in a few months in the summer. We need to start building intrigue for it and let people know that there was a, first match.
Yeah, I do wonder what all of this means. Initially, going back to December, we had heard that the War Dogs had all signed, and that's something we heard second and third hand, but from very reliable sources. I can't attest to the validity as to how accurate that is, but it's something that I've been operating as a fan personally, sort of just believing that this is the case, that they're all signed. And then suddenly we're starting to see instances of Gabe Kidd working over there, and then now Clark Connors. And, there's a lot of speculation kind of running rampant out there, especially I don't know. I don't know if it's just Davism or, if he's trying to attract clicks or just not being mindful or thoughtful, but, just tweeting out Clark Connors to AEW, like that's almost like the Dave equivalent of like putting out the fire, emoji eyes sort of shit. Like big news if true.
Yeah, there was a Clark video package that was first shown on Twitter, which I'm assuming what Dave initially was kind of tweeting off of. He did talk about it today on Observer Radio, and he just made it sound like, he's coming in for some dates, but not necessarily, he's not signed with AEW.
Right. And, who knows? Like anything is possible in 2025, even if the, what's wrong with me? Even if the talent is contracted to New Japan and they have a signed deal, it doesn't preclude them from potentially having some other signed deal. We've seen this, recently with Takeshita, and I'm not necessarily of the belief that it couldn't also potentially work the other way around, where Western talent, maybe could have a dual contract situation between the two companies. Who's to say? I don't know.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that these guys are all signed. At the same time, we've seen the playbook, and I'm not trying to ring the alarm bells and say 100% emphatically that we need to worry about all these guys getting signed away. But we've seen that happen so many times now, where they start making appearances in AEW, the guys that are popular, the guys that are difference makers in New Japan. And then a year later, they're fucking working for AEW. So me personally, I'm very nervous about this, but, we had a lot of people discuss this in the Discord, and there were those individuals that were saying like, hey, for Clark, he's a junior. We're heading into the New Japan Cup. Like there's not going to be much for him to do. It's probably allowing them to get reps, allowing them to supplement their income and get some paydays. But then I was like, well, what about Gabe Kidd? Like, and it probably is what you're saying, Jeremy. Like, they're probably showcasing him to, I think some people are fantasy booking the idea of like a Bullet Club, War Dogs invasion, and really building the potential pay-per-view that's coming up for Forbidden Door out to something so that it's like warring factions sort of thing. But and even if they are doing that, I personally haven't seen them have the like commitment and restraint to like go all in with that so far. Maybe they do feel the need to do it because God knows they don't think that there's enough stars in New Japan alone to showcase an event like that. So maybe they are trying to have a little bit more forethought, but I'm just worried because when you say like that they're doing the same thing that they did with Will and Kenny, I'm like, well, look at the end result of what they did when it was Will and Kenny. Like they got Will and they got Kenny, and we got none of that shit. So, who's to say? I do think it's funny though, with Gabe Kidd and all of the smack talk he talked, and the fact that he had already worked ROH and AEW prior to all the shit he said about Tony Khan and AEW. And now he's back fucking working over there following the 1-5. And, Rich was like, they should just give him a list of Chris Charlton's grievances. I'm like, those were Gabe Kidd's grievances in the mouth of Chris Charlton is what happened there. Like, let's not pretend that he wasn't literally like bar for bar verbatim stealing, Gabe Kidd's flow and literally like sharing the story of what he had literally said in all of his promos.
Yeah. But also I think Chris does have probably has his own feelings too that kind of mixed in with what Gabe was doing.
I agree, but it's just funny. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. I'm a little nervous about it though. I'm not going to lie. And if it hadn't happened so many times before, I wouldn't feel that way, but it's happened a lot.
Yeah. I mean, even with Clark too, I mean, he got over super big that first Forbidden Door international 4-way. So, I mean, he's a very talented guy, and yeah, it would be a shame to lose, Gabe, Clark, Drilla, all these Bullet Club War Dogs guys.
At the same time, it's business. People got to get paid. I get it. Konosuke Takeshita will be defending the Never title against Angel de Oro this Friday at CMLL in Arena, Mexico. So, might want to check that out. And then the unfortunate news, we probably should have led with this story, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, and that was deeply. I felt bad after we ran late, and I was joking earlier when I said it was all of our fault. It is our fault actually because we didn't, allocate the time correctly. But yeah, Gran Hamada just recently passed away. Big story in the news. We had a question here from Doc in the Discord. He says, with the passing of Gran Hamada, I think it would be interesting to go through guys rejected by New Japan who went to Mexico to build. Gran Hamada going from the dojo to Mexico, able to get Satoru Sayama into EMLL. Then you got Sasuke, Liger, Hayabusa, Ultimo Dragon, Gedo, Jado, Super Delphin, all following his lead. Without NJPW rejecting Gran Hamada, the style of Lucha Rezu is never born. So I think it's pretty interesting to delve a little into this. And he also says, and do you guys have an opinion on Gran Hamada, his contributions to pro wrestling, and how to this day New Japan rejects applicants on height?
Yeah, I mean, I am not super familiar with Gran Hamada. I know the name, and I know him kind of being that grandfather of Lucha Rezu, being the first guy to really combine Lucha Libre with the Japanese, hard-hitting strong style. And I know that it's kind of what opened the gate to really evolve what the junior style is in New Japan, and training, Ultimo Dragon, which we see Ultimo Dragon's legacy. And I know that I feel like a lot of people kind of credit him a lot more with kind of that style. And we saw, his whole dojo system that he had, and Dragon Gate and all that stuff, and kind of the legacy of Ultimo Dragon. As without Gran Hamada, there is no Ultimo Dragon, and you don't get that style passed down. And so, yeah, very sad to hear about his passing. I definitely want to look into some of his matches. I know there's some stuff on New Japan World, and he's just a kind of a dynamic performer. And I heard Joe and Rich over at the Flagship Voice of Wrestling did a great job kind of breaking down his life and career, just talking about what a professional he was. And, I think, his height and stuff, and maybe quote-unquote lack of charisma compared to other guys kind of didn't go as far. Takamichi Inoku kind of got picked over him for Kai and stuff like that for WWF. But overall, his lasting impressions, I mean, a lot of the style that we watch today with that junior wrestling, that kind of the modern, cruiserweight X Division, whatever you want to call it, style, I think a lot of that does link with the blend of the Lucha Rezu that Gran Hamada created.
Yeah. You have seen some Gran Hamada, Jeremy. I mean, I'm sure you're aware that you've seen some of his.
Yeah. I've seen some. Just I'm not like, I can't tell you like my top 10 Gran Hamada matches. I'm not super familiar with him like that.
Well, I couldn't do that either, because believe it or not, as revered as he is and as influential as he is, there is a shocking lack of tape on Gran Hamada, just because of the nature of the style of work that he did and the places that he worked over the years. There's not as much tape on Gran Hamada as you would think there would be, especially for a modern guy. But, a lot of that had to do with him like working in Mexico for all those years, and the laws that kind of, I don't know if you're familiar, but there was like a time where like there were blackout periods where you couldn't air pro wrestling in Mexico on the television in certain regards. And part of that was to attract people to come to the shows to watch it live, because you couldn't watch it on TV. That's a whole nother story, but yeah, that's one of the reasons we have so little Lucha Libre tape, like going back to like, prior to the 80s for a lot of people. But Gran Hamada is, like you said, he's super influential, and I'll take it a step further. And this is just my personal opinion, and I don't think I'm alone in this. I think that Gran Hamada is literally the single most influential worker of probably like the last 50 years in professional wrestling. And that's not to say that there aren't other individuals that you could also point to as being hyper influential, but when you talk about the through line of what he developed in terms of combining what he gathered from the Mexican and the Japanese styles of wrestling and modernizing both of them and innovating both of them to like, he is absolutely like the father of Lucha Rezu. There's an incredible story up from K-Slow, guy over at Voices of Wrestling. He's probably like one of, if not the foremost knowledgeable individuals when it comes to the Dragon Gate system and the whole history of that whole thing. And yeah, he put out an obit on Gran Hamada that's well worth your time to go out of your way to read that. Unfortunately, he was not really in the greatest health the past few years. So I think that Case was probably benefited from that aspect to where he knew to go ahead and, probably get that obituary ready to go. And it really delves deep into the legacy and career of Gran Hamada. But when you do watch what is on tape, especially like the New Japan stuff from like the early 80s, I think and I don't know, this probably isn't the most, I don't think it's the most controversial take because there's people in like the pro wrestling only and DVD VR circles, but like they were always of the opinion that like he was more dynamic and greater than Tiger Mask, even though Tiger Mask came after him and sort of like usurped him as being like the head of the junior division and the guy that, really spearheaded that revolution. And make no mistake about it, Sayama's super, super important and super influential and athletic, but like Gran Hamada to me is faster. Like he was a faster worker. He was innovative in a different way because he was the first guy to do a lot of the things that Sayama brought to the forefront, especially like dives to the outside, the planchas, the way he did the suicide dive in Japan. And then, yeah, I mean, like almost all modern professional wrestling that we see on a week to week basis in every single facet of the world, it is all influenced and innovated from Gran Hamada's style of wrestling. He might not, and we're not, I don't think we're the group to do the full retrospective on everywhere he went. But he worked in so many different eras and so many different places and had a hand in training and influencing directly and indirectly so many luchadors and Puroresu stars and all of them, like everything that happened with the junior explosion in the 90s, when you look at like all of those guys that came from the J Cup and the J Crown and everything like that, they're all influenced by Gran Hamada. Like that's how like layered the groundwork is. It's kind of like this. And I mean, like, this sounds so like, I almost feel like I'm like over exaggerating, but I'm not. Like that. This is the truth. There's wrestling before Gran Hamada, and then there's wrestling after Gran Hamada. And like, certainly you can watch some of the, like the French catch stuff and you'll see some really innovative stuff. If you watch World of Sport, same thing. You go back, you watch early Japanese wrestling, you can go to all of these different types of places and you can find elements that resonate with modern day wrestling kind of trickled in. But make no mistake about it, none of that wrestling resembles or feels like you're watching today's wrestling. When you watch Gran Hamada in 1980 and in 1981, you feel like he would literally be someone that could not just fit in, but excel in today's wrestling because everything that everybody's doing is based off of what he was doing back then. He was like one of the first cross-trained, cross-innovative guys that was putting everything together in an art form to the way that it is now. And yeah, I do think it is funny because like Doc was saying, the idea that he was rejected by his height, and again, I'm not, as much as I do know about Gran Hamada, I'm sure there's a lot of people that know more about him. I do think the situation was that he started in the dojo. They didn't graduate him because of the height thing. He went to Mexico, and I even think that the nickname, if I recall, because his like ring name was Hamada, and Gran means like grand, like giant, big, but he's small. So like it was almost a play on words, like the Grand Hamada, and then this little tiny guy comes out. Like that was the whole deal with him. But yeah, Gran Hamada, like when he came back to Japan and all the work, and I was gonna say I've recommended a few back when we were doing like the recommended matches of the week. I know for a fact that I've recommended the Tiger Mask match from 81, or maybe it's 82. And there is a tag team match that I made you and Jamie watch where it's like him, Babyface, Tiger Mask, and somebody else. And when we watched it, I was like, this match is like literally it's like a modern day Dragon Gate style match, but it's in 1983. Like it's crazy that was the case. But yeah, it is sad. I think that it's a crying shame that Gran Hamada is not in the Observer Hall of Fame, and I think it's bizarre that he's not, just kind of given the business that he did and his level of influence and innovation. It's weird, but I think people will probably be reevaluating that.
Yeah, and something Joe and Rich said, they were like, people that you're watching Gran Hamada and not realizing that you're watching Gran Hamada, just the kind of influence that he's had.
Well, it's like this, like when you watch 90s, and what's funny is if you go, as much as we didn't realize it, if you go and watch like wrestle clips and stuff online, you'll see a lot of like innovative stuff in like 90s WWF and 90s WCW that you're like, I don't remember them doing shit like this, but they were there was times where people were doing cool shit if they could get away with it. But, if you watched like 90s WWF, there's a lot of guys that are still wrestling like the old style. By the time you get to like nowadays, everyone's kind of wrestling like Seth Rollins,
Yeah.
And they're all doing that shit because that's sort of what, like, there is no need for them to have a junior style because, the biggest differences between what WWE and AEW do a lot of the time has to do with just match structure. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual execution of the moves. Most of it just comes down to
how they place the moves,
the micromanaging of the agents behind the scenes, and the inability to allow those guys to go out there and do creative shit, but every now and again, you'll see people doing stuff that's very like, there's not that big of a difference between AEW and WWE's wrestling at the end of the day. As much as people like claim that there is, you'll see a lot of the same high flying, fast paced, high octane offense in both companies. And it really all just derives back to this guy being the first one to kind of like innovate those things and combine it all together, and how that caught fire and how that like permeated for generations. And like, there is no Eddie Guerrero or, Chris Jericho or, Shawn Michaels and shit like that. Like all those guys like they're all influenced by Gran Hamada, Sasuke, Liger, everybody.
Yeah.
Mysterio, anybody that you like, probably, whether they know it or not, they're influenced by Gran Hamada and because he was the first to do it, really.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things like a lot of people just don't know that. And that's probably why he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. A lot of voters don't do the research on him. Like, there's probably a lot, like, there's not a lot of tape on him either. So I think so much that people don't know about him.
Yeah, I think it really, it comes down to there was a lot of bad timing. I think the biggest business that he did were the few years where he was in Mexico prior to returning from excursion, where he was like a significant draw. And obviously like height and size and stature are less of a major consideration in Mexico than they are in Japan. But for whatever reason, there were always political issues. There were always stylistic issues when it came to his work in Japan. And he consistently was migrating from company to company, organization all throughout his tenure. But at the same time, laying the groundwork and the seeds for different groups. I mean, like Michinoku Pro, Osaka Pro, Dragon Gate, T2P, like all of that shit, like literally the Toryumon system, like all of it originates from him and his influence and the places that he went to work and what he did. I mean, he was part of UWFI the first UWF. He was part of Universal, Lucha Libre. Like, he was in a lot of like places that were very important and kind of created what we have now.
Yeah, super influential. Like I said, I definitely want to try and find as much of this stuff. I know they've put some more stuff on World, I believe, but it's also like this, Jeremy, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not always the biggest. Like, for instance, we'll be in a group chat, right? And this is a great opportunity to kind of bring this up. And this is the difference between like me and James Boyd, and I know he's just like messing with me, but like something will come up. Like, obviously, I like Greg the Hammer Valentine, right? I know that from just watching his catalog of matches, I can name like 15 guys that Greg Valentine had really great matches with. At the same time, there's so little tape of him that when you go to Cage Match, you're not going to find really good ratings because he predates like the 90s. Yeah.
And you're not going to see a long list of 5-star matches because of the nature of how the business was orchestrated back then. There's a lack of tape, and the tape that does exist, only so many people have actually even been exposed to it or seen it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing with him. If you go to his Cage Match, you'll find, I think his highest rated match probably going to be the one with Tiger Mask. And I think that one ends in a fuck finish where I think it's a double dive to the outside or something like that, where they go over the top rope. And then you're just not going to find a lot there. It is something where when you are evaluating wrestlers from that era, you kind of have to look at them in terms of how they perform against their contemporaries from the same era. And when you watch him move and you watch his ring style and structure to his matches, he's modern. Like, like it's like when you watch Bret Hart, like as much tape as we have of Bret Hart, like there's less tape of Bret Hart than there is of like, say, Will Ospreay. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, who's the better wrestler? And you can name your arguments, and different people have differing opinions just depending on their tastes and everything. But it's comparing apples to oranges because they were in different eras with different methods of cataloging and collecting the matches themselves. And my understanding is a lot of the best stuff of Gran Hamada never even made tape.
Yeah.
But when you watch what's on tape, you really will be impressed. Even if you're not going out there watching a 5-star classic, because I don't know how many of those actually exist on tape for Gran Hamada. Probably the best stuff is going to be the stuff from like Michinoku Pro during their hottest years. That's probably going to be the best stuff that you find with him, with like all those multi-man tag team matches that they innovated. But I don't know. I've seen a lot of his New Japan stuff, and I've always been a big fan of Gran Hamada because he fucking rocks.
Yeah. Well, definitely thoughts and prayers with his friends and families with his passing. And now that's going to take us to some questions here, and we'll run through these and wrap the show up. So first here from Death Triangle 720, with Finlay returning after being gone after Wrestle Kingdom, do you think he will stay another year, or are we having another Hikuleo situation where he will stay until Dominion?
I doubt he'll leave.
Yeah, I think he's around for at least another year. He asked, with Jeff Cobb teasing that his time in New Japan may be running out, do you think it was a missed opportunity not to have him hold Major Gold back in 2021?
I don't know what Major Gold means necessarily, so I'm guessing they mean, if not the world title, then the top secondary belt.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. I'm finding it challenging to think back who even was champions in 2020. Like, what titles even existed in 2021?
Right. I'm trying to remember, like, was the IC already gone at that point? It probably was, right? Because Kota Ibushi, when did they unify the belts? I can't remember which. I don't
know, bro. COVID still existed, bro. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Cobb is a great in-ring guy, and I mean, sure, maybe he could have gotten a long run of like an IC / that global title kind of that secondary title. I mean, at one point the Never title was a secondary title, which he did hold the Never title. I'm a fan of Cobb.
I've never clamored for him to be in a position to hold one of those titles. I also would have never complained about him being, a top title contender or titleist or what have you. Obviously, that one run that they gave him in the G1 was really something meaningful that they failed to capitalize on. So maybe there's that, but at the same time, I don't know. Like when we say like missing an opportunity, maybe for him, maybe creatively, but like I don't think that business was on the upswing no matter what the fuck they did.
Right.
And I don't know if putting the title on him would have changed that.
Right. If a guy like Zack Sabre Jr. can't move business, I don't think Jeff Cobb is moving business. Next question here from Barry says, does ZSJ with his TV title to world title reign and Goto from tag master to world champion show people like ELP and others with secondary belts that a good reign and a good matches can push you a lot higher? Ideally, that's the way it should be, right? I mean, you look at the way things used to be, and I know I'm talking a lot about 90s wrestling right now, but you look at how things used to be with WCW and WWF, and it's not a perfect through line, but you could see projected stars who start out as tag team or lower mid-card guys winning titles and elevating through the ranks. Edge, Bret Hart, Booker T, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels. These are all like pretty good examples of like you start a guy at a certain level and you elevate him through the years, and eventually you put the big belt on them and make them, main eventers. Yeah, I mean, that's, the IC title is always considered that, that's the next stepping stone. A lot of guys that got that belt, they were trying to prime them, hopefully, for a world title run. So, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Next question here from Hawaiian Punch BV. Who do you think wins a rematch between Better Biev and Bivol? I guess this already happened. It happened, and I'd still like to hear his thoughts, and I can kind of still speak to it a little bit. He said, even though I thought Bivol won the first fight, I think Better Biev has a lot of things going for him. He's not coming back straight from an injury. I also feel he's going to commit to the body to wear out Bivol sooner instead of headhunting this time around. Yeah, I watched the fight. I was fully backing Bivol, knowing full well that Better Biev is a killer. And, who knows? Like you said, he's got a lot of things going better for him the second time around, and you just never know. But I do fully believe. I thought Bivol won the first fight. I thought it was a travesty that they gave that fight to Better Biev, because I did not think that it was necessarily that close on the scorecards for them to have done that. And I was hoping for Bivol to win the rematch, but nervous about it all the same, because Better Biev has not. I don't know if you know. So do you know these guys, Jeremy? I'm familiar with their names, but I haven't really seen them fight much. So Bivol and Better Biev, they fought like 5 or 6 months ago, and they're both Russian, and they were both the world champions in the lightweight division. So they were unifying all the titles, and both undefeated at the time when they like first fought. And Bivol is a Soviet style. They're both Russian, but he's a Soviet style fighter. Like, those are guys that are always bouncing on the balls of their feet. They're always in and out. They do a lot of combo fighting. They're very swift and fluid and that sort of thing. Boxing, boxers. Better Biev is more like a brawler, but he had knocked out every single person he had ever fought up to that point. Like, he had 100% KO rating. Like, so he's just a destroyer of worlds. He fucked up everybody. Then they fought like 5 months ago, and it went to the decision. So Bivol was the first guy to go the distance with Better Biev in a professional ring. And I thought he won. A lot of people thought Bivol won. They gave it to Better Biev, so then they did the rematch here. And it was scary, man, because I thought Bivol fought pretty good for the first couple rounds, but then he seemed to stop throwing the right, and he ate a lot. He took a lot of damage. But what he was really doing was he was doing a little bit of a rope-a-dope there, as he was letting Better Biev get his confidence and kind of tee off a little bit and tire himself out. And then around like the 5th or 6th round, like, Bivol started really amping up and throwing in combinations and using the movement in and out. But I thought he was going to do a lot more boxing than he did, and he really took the fight to Better Biev in an unexpected way. And I think he really weathered those early storms. And the balls on that dude. It was a great fight.
just a really, really awesome. Bivol won the rematch, and I was hoping he would win, and I think it was pretty convincing. But it was a great fight. And the interesting thing is Biev had said after the fight that he never wanted the rematch in the first place, and that the I don't know if you know, it's the Saudis that are running these shows, and he basically said that the Saudis like forced him to have the rematch with Bivol, and now he's like, I'm definitely gonna come back because he's a little bit older. He's like 40 now, because these Soviet guys, they fight for so many years in the amateurs that they have kind of shortened professional careers. And he was like, I'm definitely going to come back, but they're going to want me to fight Bivol in the trilogy, and it's all about money, but it's like, he was pretty clear, like he didn't want to fight him again because it was a lot that he was a handful for him the first time. So we're definitely going to get the trilogy fight. Both guys have beaten each other one time, and that's their only losses. So we'll see what happens. And literally, I think Bivol will always beat him, but Beterbiev could just fucking knock him out. That's how heavy-handed he is. So you just never know.
Dark Soldier asks, will Jeff Cobb win Worst Commentator of the Year next year?
Probably not. He shouldn't.
Death Triangle 720, in terms of the junior division, with Hiromu currently heavy tag champion and Drilla and Kevin Knight are no longer in the junior division. If you had to pick 3 talents to take their spots for Best of Super Juniors, who would you choose?
I don't know. We'll do a Ninja Mac, although I don't know if
he was there last year.
I know, that's what I mean. Like, he was there last year, but like, if we have to have someone take their spots, like, I guess him. Daiki Nagai.
Just for the tournament, I would love like
the tournament,
Masquerada.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next suggestion, is bring in an outsider, someone probably AEW, CMLL. We're done with Impact.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I think Darby, we keep talking about it. Darby being in the junior division would be a lot of fun.
Gotta win though. He'd have to win the whole shit. So
yeah. Let's see. Next question here from Adam Sensa A2. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I'm not a fan, but it's fine. Like, I don't hate people that do it.
Yeah, I'm not I don't do it, but I'm not going to judge people who do it.
Jeremy, you're pretty much you're a pepperoni only guy, right?
That's my go-to. I'll do like a meat lovers kind of gimmick, I'll do a stuffed crust,
Oh, I love stuffed crust.
But I'm straight up pepper. I believe if you have any kind of pizza gathering, pizza party, you should always have a pepperoni, straight pepperoni as an option. Let's see, next question here. Rambone says, your podcast has the momentum of a runaway freight train. Why are you so popular?
Are we? Oh shit. Actually, let me tell you this story. I should have said this earlier. So what day is it? Monday?
Yeah.
Saturday night. Shout out to, I don't know if he's listening, but shout out to the bartender, David, from the AMC here in Florida. I won't say which one because I don't want to blow up his spot too much, but you know me, I'm always at the movies. So out on a little date night, and I said, you know what? I've had a really good week this week. And I said to my wife, you want a little drink? A little drink from the bar? From McGuffin's bar? You know how expensive those fucking drinks are?
Yeah, I've seen the prices. I've never had one from there.
They're ridiculous, bro. But I was like, let's do a little drink. So I go there and I'm wearing my New Japan hoodie, and the bartender stops me. Guy named David. He's like, bro, first off, let me just say before I make your drinks, incredible hoodie. And bro, I was pretty tired, so I didn't even know what the fuck he's talking about. And I put down and I was like, oh, I'm wearing, and so then he came back and I was like, oh, do you watch New Japan? He's like, yeah, bro, I watched like, you could tell like he was really into it. And I was like, oh, cool, man. Well, if you like New Japan, you should check out my podcast. I don't know if you listen to shows, but I run one of the larger podcasts that's out there for it. And he's like, what's the name of your show? And I was like, Keepin It Strong Style. And he was like, oh, like, are you fucking for real? And like, he was like, I don't even know how to process that information right now. He's like, of course I know what Keepin It Strong Style is. And I was like, oh shit. Like, you know, and he, like, so yeah. But he was like, I'm not the biggest podcast guy. It's like, but I'm like in the like chats and stuff. And I see people talking about it. And he's like, I've heard of it. Like, he's like, I know, he's like, I think I've listened to a few episodes. I know who the fuck you are. He's like, this is crazy. And I was like, to me, that was crazy. I'm like, someone like actually in the real world knows what our show is. And like, he really like, he unless he was acting, you know, you never know. Sometimes, you know, some people like they pretend like they know something. They don't really know it. Could be that, but he seemed pretty genuine. Like the way he reacted was like, holy shit. And he's like, I'm going to listen this week. I'm going to do a rating and review. I'm like, bro, you ain't got to do all that. Just, you know, give me a 5-finger discount on that fucking drink over there. What you need to do.
Oh man. Yeah.
So are we popular? I don't know what's going on with the show. I never know the numbers.
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I feel like 2018, 2019, we had like a big like wave of momentum that we rode. Like we, you know, got the G1 credentials. We had the Suplex Mania, like that whole New York weekend. And then obviously COVID happened. And I feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like we are at, I mean, the numbers are great, but I don't know, just the interaction. I feel like sometimes I don't feel like we have that momentum. Like
do we have more listeners now than we did back then? I feel like we do.
Yeah.
And then how are we not more popular?
I don't know. The momentum doesn't feel there. Like it felt like we've kind of made it.
We haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
In a long time.
Yeah. But yeah, we're good. Thanks, Rambuns. Let's see. Next question here from Doc. Do you guys think the horse and the pharaoh ever team up? They kind of wrestle and look the same. I'm not sure who he's talking about.
He's talking about Taguchi's two different gimmicks. He wears the pharaoh mask, and then he also wears the masked horse.
Gotcha.
And this probably deserved to be more in the Fantastica Mania, but you didn't get his joke, so.
Nah, it went right over my head.
Buried.
Death Triangle 720, do you think the company is strong enough right now to have a G1 special in the US again? They did it in 2019 in Dallas, and their biggest mistake was the marketing.
Probably not, but you never know. I mean, they did the Chicago Windy City Riot show last year, and that was pretty successful. I think if you do it at the right date, in the right building with the right people involved, perhaps you could do that. But I think they would need some coordination and support from AEW most likely to actually make that a real success.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, you know, that Dallas 2019, that the attendance wasn't great for that building. And they were at their peak then. So yeah, definitely, yeah, you need kind of the stars to align, all kind of the right pieces to do that. Let's see his next question. Do you think any of the current young lions are ready for an excursion? New Japan will be out of the running to sign new talent, so the dojo is their biggest access to future stars for the company.
I don't know, but at one point they had mentioned something like the dojo being at capacity with people in the dojo. And just because they're not all having made their debuts doesn't mean that there aren't always trainees and individuals that are within the system. So, you know, who knows? As of right now, I would say no. I don't personally see anybody that I think is ready for excursion. Like, I'm just now kind of coming around on Kato and Murashima, but I don't make those decisions. So, I mean, who am I to say, you know?
Yeah, obviously they've been trying to send guys off faster, but I agree with you. I mean, also we've been saying we think Nagai and Yasuda are ahead of Kato and Murashima, and I still think that's the case. And I wouldn't send Nagai and Yasuda out yet. I feel like there's still a lot of reps they need to get in New Japan. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably lean towards Nagai just because of his facials and this kind of his promos. I feel like you could potentially do something there. Dark Soldier has some questions here. It says, Gals and Anderson might be coming back. Will their iconic theme song return with them?
Their song's like, the devil
in the distance.
I don't know. I don't want to see them back.
He says, Goto finish a story. Can Ishii finish his?
If we start a 24-hour prayer chain, maybe.
I mean, anything can happen, but
anything can happen.
He says Okan beat Shota, yet Shota gets to have a bye in the tournament and not Okan.
Yeah, the buys don't fucking matter.
They're all random.
They're just random. It should be. I think the way they should explain it is like the way they used to do the Royal Rumble, where they're spinning the thing. They pull the fucking numbers out. That's what they should do.
They should, yeah.
Like, oh, you got the buy.
It says, so is TJP the leader of the United Empire?
Bro, I don't know. That's one of those like that's gonna be an unresolved thing forever. I have no clue.
Good. Yeah, it's gonna be the new Who's the Mole in Chaos.
I don't even know if he's sticking with the company. Do we know if he's even resigned or whatever?
I haven't heard anything. I know there was rumors that his contract was up and he was kind of shopping around. So I don't know what the deal is with him. And his last question: what would New Japan look like had Kota Ibushi not gotten injured and stayed with the company?
Cerulean blue mat, red and yellow lion mark logo, Tanahashi's president. I don't know, bro. You want me to butterfly affect the long-term trajectory of New Japan based on whether if Ibushi had never gotten injured? Here's what happens. Ibushi never gets injured and stays with the company. There is no WWE right now. All right. The worldwide leading entertainment giant and juggernaut is New Japan. They fold WWE into them. AEW is the feeder league to New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're basically New Japan's NXT. You know what I'm saying? The number 2 company in the world, NWA. Shit took off. I don't know, dude.
All because Ibushi didn't injure his shoulder.
All because Ibushi didn't make slanderous claims about the Yakuza.
Yeah. Who knows what would have happened. I mean, clearly he probably would have still been a top guy. But who knows? He might have just gone to AEW anyway.
I have no clue what would happen. I don't even know like what would have. I can't even begin to wrap my head around what that would have looked like if Ibushi had, like, eventually his body would have broke down anyways. Right. Whether it happened there or elsewhere, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, last set of questions here from Kevin from DC. Haven't heard from him in a while. So just wanted to share. I went on a run today while listening to New Japan music. As I entered the last 5 minutes, Goto's theme started playing, and it was an epic way to finish the workout. The G and goddamn run stood for Goto here. Then he says, now back in 2023, I was probably the staunchiest defender of Sonata listening to the show, and I was excited to see him get his flowers, win his IWGP title run. Obviously, to say the follow-up has been disappointing would be the understatement of a century. He's now about to enter March and the New Japan Cup season, and all seems lost with him. He wrestles completely lethargically. He has no semblance of character, and he doesn't even have a place in his own faction. Now the War Dogs are likely going to feud with House of Torture. Hell, at this point, he'd be a better fit in House of Torture, reunited with Evil after all this time. So my question is, from the beginning of their title reign to now, who's had the bigger fall from grace? Evil from July 2020 to now, or Sonata from April 2023 to now?
Sonata.
Yeah. I feel like Evil is still, obviously he's never won the title again, but he's still relevant, and he's still used in main event spots, and he's definitely a key integral into a lot of stories and what they do. Whether you like House of Torture or not, like they're always kind of plugged in somewhere.
And I hate to say this, but it is just the truth. It's a non-zero chance that Evil ever wins the title again.
Yeah.
Like, there is the possibility that, like, Evil could one day under the right circumstances, be the world champion in New Japan again, because he has the popularity and is functional in his role to potentially do that, even if it was just for heat and a mini, who knows, probably some sort of what is that called when one guy wins the title and then passes it off?
Transitional title reign.
Yeah, even if it's just a transitional title reign, but like, I think we're done with Sonata. Like, that's it.
Yeah, he's
cooked.
Peaked.
He's cooked. Man's washed.
Yeah. Another question. He says, "What do you think is Drilla's ceiling of New Japan? He beat Shingo clean in his heavyweight debut, and even though Shingo takes losses on an almost monthly basis and does fine afterwards, it still feels like a big deal. So is Drilla's ceiling a never open weight champion? Lower, think TV title or tag titles, or higher, global title and beyond?"
I personally, and I could be wrong here, but I just personally right now have never seen enough in Drilla to believe at this current time he would be world champion material, although he's got the look for it. And, I would love to be proved wrong on that. But as of right now, I just don't see that. But could there be a scenario where he becomes like global champion or lower? Sure. I mean, there was a time where you could have never convinced me that David Finlay could get to that level, and he's there now. I don't see why that couldn't also happen for Drilla.
Yeah, I think the global title could be his peak. Yeah, I think it would take a lot to get into that world title scene. But I think he could definitely be global champion, never champion, TV champion. And then his last question, who are your favorites to take the titles from Hiromu and Naito at this time? Hanare is injured for the rest of the year, so he and O'Connor are out. Young Bucks may come back soon. They may not. Gallows and Anderson could come in. Dread the thought. Who are your likely suggestions to end LIJ's reign? Also, is Hiromu a heavyweight going forward? If so, will we know for sure before the G1 climax?
I think that they have been pretty, at least on the Western side of things, they're still referring to him as a junior. I don't think, we've been doing this for so many years saying like this is the launching pad to him becoming a heavyweight, but it doesn't feel like it's the actual true launching pad to him becoming a heavyweight. I think it's just I think it's reminiscent to like when Kengo Kimura and Fujinami were champions. Like he's the junior to Naito's ace, or heavyweight sort of role.
Yeah, I think we'll see him in Super Juniors for sure, and he'll probably continue to be used as a junior. As far as who takes a belt off of them or faces the next, like I have no idea. Like there's not a really ton of great tag teams lined up in New Japan right now. I know last week we kind of talked about maybe Zack and Oiwa could be a great team to challenge.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like there are things guys you could put together that are not together right this very second, but like I just pulled up a list of like the New Japan personnel, and like I could see Callum Newman teaming with someone in like a Great O'Khan, or if he sticks around, like a Jeff Cobb, and potentially being champion. Drilla, who knows? If they want to team him up with somebody, there's options out there.
He could do Yuya and Taichi.
Yep, I was thinking that too. Yeah, like Taichi and Yuya Uemura is another possibility. And you already mentioned Zack and Oiwa. So there's people out there who don't have things going on at this, immediate current time. I mean, even like if you did Ren, who would you team him up with? Probably Evil.
Yeah, that would probably be the best option of How to Torture.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Like we've already talked about how Sonata's not like doing anything. You could team him up with like Jake Lee, or team him up with one of the other War Dogs or whatever, and kind of go from there. So I think there are some options. Ishii, I don't know who Ishii's teaming up with.
Because you team with Yoshihashi.
Yeah, they could do that. They used to team together. I'm pretty sure they did a tag league once upon a time, if I recall. So yeah, I think there's options.
Yeah.
And then, even like a Desperado is a guy that I think could team up with somebody, you know. How about ELP and El Desperado as a team?
That could work. Could be interesting.
They're both Hantai.
Yeah. Both start with L. So throw them together.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, obviously there's Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols. I saw Shane Haste put a thing out saying his 90 days were up, and people were speculating if that meant like, you know, that they were leaving, or was it like a joke because of other people, you know, all the stuff going on with people's contract status, and he's just like telling a joke. I saw one person say it had something to do with 90 Day Fiance, like it's not wrestling related at all. It's just like a joke about like, you know, I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, they feel like the most established team that's like still potentially going to be around, other than Bishamon.
Yeah, I think that was a kind of a joke on what, you know, everybody talking about their 90-day contracts and how long it is or whatever. But I would expect them to be back. It would be kind of weird if, like, you know, they couldn't use TMDK anymore because like New Japan just kind of like took it. So, but
yeah, well, I mean, I think that the other TMDK members still bill themselves as TMDK in Australia, but then again, I don't really know because I don't watch Australian wrestling.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not going to now because I found out that they have small rings over there. You know what I'm saying? You know me. I can't.
Them 18 by 18s. Nah, boy.
I don't believe that was. I think that shit was 16 by 16. I think they're fucking lying, dude. It's hard for me to believe that that's an 18 by 18. I've been at 18 and a 16, and I don't know. That was a low boy. It looked like a 16 to me. You know.
Yeah.
What's his face? QT Marshall says it's 18. So
yeah, the PWA ring. He said. Well, that's
which
it.
I have it on good authority that they they work in 16. So.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just playing.
Well, that's going to be it for the questions. Recommended match of the week. Do you have anything for us to go this week?
Okay, so a couple of quick things. So I did end up watching the Yuji Ino Ishii match, and that shit rocked from DDT.
Yeah.
So that's definitely going to get some consideration from me. I thought that was an awesome match. Did you watch the Takeshita, Osprey, Kenny? Who else was in that?
The Australia match? Yeah, I watched the Australia match.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that? Because I wasn't super high on that.
I thought it was awesome. I don't think it was 5 stars that Dave gave it. I was more of like the 4.5 range. I thought they did some incredible stuff. Oh, you didn't know Dave gave it 5 stars?
No, I had no clue Dave gave it 5 stars.
But yeah, I'm like 4.5 on it.
That's crazy to me.
It was. I thought it was a great matchup.
Go ahead. I thought it was really good for like a TV opener tag and very exciting in certain parts, but there was definitely an aspect to the work where like it just didn't feel grounded or gritty enough for me. Like I appreciate that, like the athleticism of what they were doing there and the go, but like, you know how sometimes you hear like that whole thing about like obvious cooperation, like at a certain point, like it stopped feeling like. And I'm not usually that guy who's like, this looks like a, you know, choreography, but like a lot of it did at a certain point where I was like, they're going to fucking like fight each other, or like, are they just going to keep flipping each other around? So I don't know, man, like that match didn't work for me the way I was hoping it would. And especially kind of considering the backstory and the heat there, I thought that there would be a little bit more hard hittingness and kind of gritty nature to it. It just didn't. But the athletic stuff was, especially some of the spots they did to the outside and some of the top rope stuff was really, incredible. They did not stick to a tag structure whatsoever, though. I felt bad for Bryce Remsburg because he could not control that action. And they just might as well have had a tornado tag because like they were barely tagging in and out. And it was like, who the fuck is the legal man? And that might seem a little nitpicky, but like when we rag on the New Japan guys for, about halfway through the match, stopping, not, basically losing control. This was just no control, like literally from the get-go. Like there was never a time where Bryce like had that shit like on lock. I thought the match was very good, but I thought that was a notable excursion match that took place that, I don't know. I just was not as high on it as everybody else was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was great. Like I said, 4.5 range, and there's a lot of cool combos. I mean, the Hidden Blade, One-Winged Angel finish was
sick.
Was just incredible. But yeah, I didn't think it was 5, but it was definitely a great match. So that's considered excursion because of Takeshita being signed now.
He's signed. I mean, he's like the one guy. Any work he does, I mean, same thing, kind of like with Mercedes, because she's got the title and shit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah. I don't have one picked out for this week, but when is the Takeshita CMLL match?
This Friday. I was going to say, let's see if we can get the footage of that. Try and watch and review that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can. We got ways. So we'll watch that, review that, come back next week, talk about it.
All right, we'll do that, and also
come up on Hell de Oro.
So we'll review that, and then also next week, Chris Samsa will join us to preview the anniversary show and New Japan Cup. Well, and that's gonna do it for us here this week on the show. Remember, if you want to watch our show live, listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialbooks.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at SoSuplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/SoSuplex in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, on the Pro Black Guy, just Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at SoSuplex. Join our SoSuplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. And check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd in Austin. Imps WWE Adventure with the implications of Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Slings. Tunnel Talk with Ali and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Your old or broken phone can let you down, but at Verizon, trade in any old phone from our top brands and get iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence with a new line on My Plan and iPad and Apple Watch Series 10. After all, you don't want your old phone to die on you when you're lost.
Perfect.
Or for your broken phone to glitch at the worst possible time.
Hey, can I get your number? Oh.
Trade in your old phone for a brand new iPhone 16 Pro, iPad, and Apple Watch. Visit Verizon.com today. Additional terms apply. Service plan required for Apple Watch and iPad.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.